look, we're all familiar with these little icons. And so one of the starting points here is these companies, they're in 90% of our pockets. A lot of kids are using them, almost all kids, a lot of adults are using them. So my hope tonight is, as a starting point, is for us just to forget about these products, right? All the things you've seen. I mean, it's almost Christmas and I'm already seeing the commercials where the 10-year-old, what looks like a 10-year-old kid is opening the present and there's the brand new iPhone. There's Facebook talking about how they connect people and how great they are and all these wonderful things they've done. And so just keep an open mind and forget everything you've heard. And then I want to tell you about companies that monetize and target children, right? So I don't care what kind of company. What I'm about to show you, these are quotes directly from internal company documents from Meta and TikTok. These are publicly available documents. I wish I could tell you about some of the non-publicly available documents. I can't. But just these are the publicly available ones, folks. These are companies, Meta. Tweens are herd animals and want to find communities where they can fit in. The young ones are the best ones. You want to bring them into your service young and early. I believe this is TikTok. Better to have young people as an early adopter, especially teens in the US. Why? They got a lot of time. And the lifetime, this is Meta, the lifetime value of a 13-year-old teen is roughly $270 per teen. That particular quote relates to a document where they're talking about things like changing products to make them safer, and essentially the corporate culture that was being conveyed there is, if you have to spend $270, it's not worth it. That's all we can expect to make on each teen. So any fix that costs more than that, we don't do it. You have to keep that in mind when you're coming up with safety fixes, right? $270 per kid. This is a company, so the companies I want to tell you about, these are companies that hire psychologists and neuroscientists for product development. This is a Meta document. It is a publicly available Meta document. There are multiple brain scans in there. The little arrow pointing to the frontal cortex, and I've sort of blown up this quote there. It's not quite big enough for me to read it, but if I'm not mistaken, they make teens very vulnerable. This is not a safety document. This is a product development document. These are actual psychologists and neuroscientists that Meta and other companies hire. After these types of shots, it will be followed by opportunities is what they call them. And I'm not putting my glasses on, I'm not doing it. This one, shift teen perception of Instagram by incorporating more lower quality content in their discovery experience, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, and look, not every opportunity here is a negative. Obviously, I've picked some of the worst ones. The point to this, though, is these products are designed with kids in mind. And it's hard a lot of times as an adult to really understand what that experience is like, because when we jump onto Instagram, it's not made for our brains. It's made for theirs. In this same deck, there's another slide that says something to the effect of, we have saturated the adult market. Our only opportunity for growth are the 4 million new teens that start using the internet every year. Right? So these companies are structuring everything around our kids. We are okay to have our kids are what they actually want. So again, not knowing this is Facebook, not knowing this is Instagram, not knowing this is what these companies are doing. Pushes harms as a matter of engagement first design, right? This is a public document, a Meta test, where basically they're liking dieting content, for example. And what they're finding is that they are getting pushed massive amounts of really harmful, violating content. Things that if the platform was doing what it's supposed to do under its terms of service, these accounts would not be up. And this content would not be pushed to kids. Now, user recommendation systems. Is anyone familiar with what that, when I refer to that, what that is? If you have a Snapchat, it's called Quick Ad. If you have a Facebook, people you may know. If you have an Instagram, suggestions for you. When you open the account, it's saying, hey, you may know this person. On Snapchat, they'll say, hey, 200 friends were on, or 200 people you may know were on. These are your friends. These could be your friends. And actually on Snapchat, that Quick Ad, it not only is recommending these random strangers to our kids, it also gamifies that. So there's a Snap score, and the Snap score is publicly viewable. If you're in high school, you don't want a low Snap score. Every time you send a Snap, you get a point. There's all sorts of different gamification features in Snap. Another one that I think they discontinued was, which one? Trophies. And so with trophies, if you snapped at like 3 a.m., you would get a trophy. All of a sudden, you'd be like the night owl trophy, right? And so that's designed, you don't know what's gonna get you the trophy. So if you're a teenage kid who's trying to get credit with your friends and be popular, of course, then you start snapping every minute of every day to see if you can get another trophy. These user recommendation systems, these are features of the products that do not need to be in there. They are wildly harmful. In the work that we do, we work with over 3,600 families currently. We are a small law firm, and we've only been around for under 3 years, and we already have 3,600 families. And side note, these are families where the child has either died either by suicide, fentanyl poisoning, some type of social media related harm, or where their child has received some kind of medical treatment, right? So if you call in and say, hey, my kid's on social media all the time, I don't like it, we say, well, I'm really sorry about that, but we can't do anything legally. These are serious harms. These are attempted suicides. I don't know what the number is. I think it's like maybe 2,000 attempted suicides. And I'm talking attempted suicides where the child is hospitalized. And this is in under 3 years. So this particular feature, recommendation system, there's a meta document that is publicly available where they are talking about the harms that PYMK can lead to, and one is that it has contributed up to 75% of inappropriate adult-minor contact. Now there's a meta employee makes a comment under here that I haven't included, and she says something to the effect of, this is really disturbing. What can I do to help? Why haven't we turned this off at least for kid accounts? Right, so the big thing with big tech is, oh, it's content. It's not. We're not trying to moderate content. We're not trying to censor content. We're not saying stop your kids from looking for content. The issue is not about content, it's about design. They are designing these recommendation systems, they're programming them for engagement, which means that if and this is no joke, even though it sounds insane, if I'm a 35-year-old looking for 13-year-old girls, what these products know is that if they push me data for 40-year-old women, I'm not going to use their platform. So instead, I come to learn that, oh, this is great on Instagram. I'm getting all these recommendations. These are young girls. And so then I reach out to them. In the work that we've done, I personally met with hundreds of children and families, and every young woman I've spoken to has described the same experience. When they open an Instagram or a Snapchat, they immediately begin to get explicit photos, to get, hey, sugar daddy, sugar mommy, sugar baby, all of the solicitations, and also, again, just the photos, random strangers messaging them, even on Snap where you don't have a traditional profile, right? So I've had young girls say, I don't even know how these people found me. I don't even have a public profile. I'm on Instagram with a private profile. And yet, that experience is the same, without exception. Now, I've spoken to a couple of dozen adult women who opened Snapchat and Instagram, and I have yet to meet one who's had that experience. That is programming. That is deliberate. The companies know that they're doing that, and they do it anyway because it increases engagement. I have recently talked with a handful of young adults, and I wish I had thought to ask young adults I'd spoken to from the beginning, but I didn't. And I was speaking to one, and I said, hey, what's your experience? And she said, well, actually, I used to get all of that, but now that you mention it, when I was about 17 or 18, it slowed, and now I'm in my 20s, it doesn't happen at all. And so my question was, what are you doing differently? Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great question, because I cannot tell you the number of parents I meet with whose child is gone or harmed or struggling, and one of the first things they say is, wait a sec, I thought there was an age limit. The age limit is in name only. So there's a federal law called COPPA, C-O-P-P-A, and COPPA says that these platforms are not supposed to, they're not allowed to distribute their products to your children if they're under 13 without express parental consent. A whole bunch of rules on that. Because of COPPA, these companies in their own terms of service say minimum age is 13. In fact, Snapchat, I don't know if the terms still do, but Snapchat used to say minimum age is 13. If you're under 18, you have to get parental consent, right? But they don't enforce it. So essentially, and one of the things big tech will say is, well, we only know how old kids tell us they are, which is a complete lie. They use sophisticated systems, technologies, and signaling. So for example, if an advertiser says, hey Meta, I'm gonna pay you 5 cents for every kid under 18 that you give this ad to. Meta will say, okay, I showed it to 5 million kids, except 2 million of those kids identified when they opened the account as over 21. Right, so they do it for product development, they do it for advertising. They do not care one bit about that age limit, and I've actually met parents that are like, when I found out my kid was on it, I wrote to these companies, I reported it, I said my child's under 13. Sometimes, in a couple cases, they'll say, so they shut down the account, and then my kid went and opened a new account on the same device later that same day, and then they didn't do anything. More often than not, though, they just say they never responded to me. Because until we make them, they don't care. In fact, one of the things that young people, it's called a Finsta. I don't know if folks have heard of that, or a spam account. There's other names. So they can open second, third, they can open multiple accounts, which they'll often do to hide accounts from parents. And in that brain scan doc I showed earlier, there's a page in there that says, what is it Meta says? It's a value add proposition, these Finstas, right? So they realize, hey, kids are opening multiple accounts. This is great. This is great, and in fact, we should make sure that every kid knows they can open multiple accounts. And in 2000, I want to say 2016, it could have been 2018, they even created a feature. I don't know if anyone uses Instagram, I don't, but it used to be that if you were in an account, you would have to log out and log back in. Well, kids got caught that way. And I've met kids that are like, man, that was so stressful. My parents caught me. They found out I had a secondary account. So Meta comes up with this great idea, and now there's just a little button, and you can switch accounts. So those kids that were hiding it and like, oh, I'm going to get caught, when I see the data on the back end, a lot of times the kid will have 2 or 3 accounts, maybe, and it'll go up to 8 or 10 accounts. So there is no enforcement by the platforms. Yep. I don't know the exact percentage. Yeah, even approximately what I can say is many of the parents I work with. Many of the parents I work with had safeguards in place. Many of the parents had the Apple parental controls. You're going to see at the end of this slide, actually, you're going to see at the end of the slide some screenshots that were taken from a 14-year-old's school account, essentially, or a school device rather. The child was using the school device to access Discord. And as she's talking to strangers, the stranger's like, oh, I'd listen to it at home if you're in class. She's like, I can't. My dad turns off Wi-Fi and I can't do any of that on my phone. The parents had bought a Gab phone. They'd done everything. They even went to the school and said, my kid can't be on social media. My kid can't have this device. And the school said, that's the curriculum, I'm sorry. Like, there's nothing we can do, right? I worked with parents who never gave their kids a phone. I worked with a guy who's incredibly tech savvy, and what had happened was it turned out, and even once his kid had a device, he was just monitoring, they had rules and everything. Well, one year for birthday or Christmas, the kid got a bunch of gift cards. All it took was one of those gift cards goes in the pocket. For under $50, you go to your local Target and you're set. You get a device, $30, $35. You hook onto Wi-Fi, especially if your kid's school has free Wi-Fi, which some schools do. You would never know. Every day at school, your child could be on that device all day long, and you would never know. Under $50. You don't even need the $50. Most people's friends will get an old device and give it to them if they have a lot of devices lying around. I've met kids who stole their grandparents' old device. Let's see. We might have there we go. So these are companies that design for addiction. Teens have this is a meta document, teens have an addict's narrative. It can make them feel good, feel bad, they wish they could spend less time. I believe this is a TikTok document, don't quote me on that. The product in itself has baked into it compulsive use, which correlates with a slew of negative mental effects, like loss of all of these really important things like empathy. The reason kids watch TikTok is because the algo is really good. It might mean literally sleep, eating, moving around, looking at somebody in the eye. So there are public documents out there. The general gist of those are that these companies will sit there and talk about how do we get more time. We already got 6 hours of 90% of your kid's time. Next quarter, let's aim for 10 hours. And they know where that time comes from. It comes from sleep, it comes from family, it comes from friends. They don't care. The company, the corporate culture, they don't care because that is their number one goal. And there's no regulation and no one to stop them. That is a young woman, Cece Neltner, who was addicted to Instagram, had a severe eating disorder. She's come out the other side, and that is a drawing that she did while she was in the middle of it. I don't know if you can see there, but in the cord, there's words like lies and other sort of words that she's put in there. She is now, by the way, an advocate for young people. She is absolutely incredible. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of specific product features. Now I've highlighted, and because you asked about the age, these are still currently rated 12 plus in the App Store, which is wild. In the Apple App Store, they're rated 12 plus, which is wild because COPPA says you can't do it under 13. Their own terms say you can't be on it if you're under 13. Somebody needs to call Apple, I think people already have, and said, hey, what's up with that? It also means that if you're a parent that is relying on Apple and you put the Apple control on, 12 plus is a common age, guess what? Your kids can get all the social media apps at the 12 plus rating. Because Apple does not particularly care. So eating disorder content, health and beauty, this is an example, and I'm using this from a young man who suffered a serious eating disorder. This is the sort of young LGBTQ male version of what we see with young girls. One of the keys here, it's not any single piece of content. So first of all, many of these kids are never looking for this in the first place. They're being fed it algorithmically. In fact, there are public meta documents where they say that they serve this health and beauty type content. I believe it's, what is the stat? Maybe like 1/2 of all users and 3/4 for teen girls. And then you have an employee say, hey, what if we just reduce that number for teen girls a little bit? That might really help their self-image and everything. And of course, leadership says, no, why would we do that? So teen girls are served up more of it, including algorithmically, not necessarily by choice. And there's other public documents that talk about the fact that it's not even any single piece of content. So it's not a 12-year-old girl who's seen a Cardi B video where skin is being shown. It's the interface. It's how Instagram is actually presenting this data to children, which is overwhelming. And it is a bombardment, right? So in this document, they're talking about, hey, it's not one Cardi B video. It's that we've got a kid that we are just flooding with body image, et cetera. Body dysmorphia. This is a tougher one, and you'll see why in a moment. So this comes from a Meta document, I believe it was 2019. There were some plastic surgery filters that Meta was considering launching. They put a hold on launching. They hired 30 outside experts. The outside experts almost unanimously said, hey, we actually think these are going to be harmful to teen girls. We think these can lead to body dysmorphia. Virtually every Meta internal department said to Mark Zuckerberg, our recommendation is don't launch. We don't need these filters. The 30 outside experts have said almost unanimously that these can lead to body dysmorphia. This is a quote from a high up executive talking to Mark Zuckerberg, saying don't do it, this can result in serious issues. In 2019, and for folks who are not familiar with body dysmorphia, it is a DSM diagnosis. This is a young girl's diary in early 2020. I look at the other girls' profiles, it makes me feel worse. Nobody will love someone who is as ugly and broken as me, and I see a lot of diaries, and this is not unusual. This is a young girl who died shortly thereafter by suicide. This is a young girl who, when she died, believed that she was ugly. When she saw these photos, which were her graduation photos, and she said, oh, this isn't me. Who is this? And it's not just oh, wow, I look great. It is a clinically diagnosable disconnect between who you are and who you see yourself as. And I've totally butchered the scientific definition of that, but you guys get the gist of it, right? This is where when this young woman looked in a mirror, she saw somebody who was ugly. And she did not believe those photos were of her. Literally did not believe. Her mother pulled over. They got, I think, a hot chocolate, in fact. She'd wanted to stop at she wanted to stop somewhere. Her mom had said, no, we got to get home. And then her reaction to these photos, her mom pulled over and they stopped, and her mom was just like, how do I fix this? Her mom is also a very big advocate in this space and has done a lot of really incredible work. And Anna Lee has saved a lot of lives. Unfortunately, not the way she should have, but her mom has done some really incredible work and has spoken up and done a lot of outreach and education. And I wish that this was a one-off, but it's not. This is another Meta document. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. It just sort of emphasizes this point. Product design. It's not about content. This DAISY chart you have over here, testing they ran, the like button. The people that invented the like button wish they never had. Because one of the things that we've learned is the fact that the like button is visible, it's public, right? It causes a lot of issues, particularly with teen girls. And so they tested it, and they found if they did this thing called Pure Daisy, where they hid the like button so only the user could see the like button. And I cannot see without my glasses on that, even on the big screen. But they found that there would have been a statistically significant improvement for teen girls. Then they tested something called Popular Daisy, because part of the concern was with Pure Daisy, and these are public documents, and I kid you not, some of the concerns voiced were influencers didn't like it because nobody could see their like count, and advertisers didn't like it, right? So then they test this thing called Popular Daisy. They find Popular Daisy, which is where you can choose to do it or not, and had no difference. And they were going to launch Pure Daisy, and again, Meta leadership said no. Exploitation, sextortion, and I'll do this one very briefly. This is an issue that I think is coming to light more and more. In particular, we see a lot of young boys who go on to typically Instagram and they meet someone who appears to be a beautiful young woman, and they talk to them and they send photos, and they convince the young men to send them photos. More often than not, they get them to go over to Snapchat because the kids believe it's safe. And then it turns out it is often someone in Nigeria is where I know they've extradited some folks recently. This is a case in particular in 2022 where a father thankfully figured something was wrong, talked to his son, got in there, very tech savvy, and he went in and he reported this particular predator. So the predator opens, and this is especially, I don't know if anyone here has teens, talk to your teenagers. It especially happens to athletes, and the way it happens is because you go to the school website and you get all the information you need to find these kids, find out what their interests are, find out what teams they're on, and these athletes, of course, are used to other teenagers coming up to them and being like, man, that was a great play last weekend, right? So they're easy targets for these predators, and in this particular situation, the predator, when the young man did not pay, created a group chat on Instagram and began adding all of the kids' friends and families. And that's one of the features for years. People have begged Meta, begged them, please do not make kids followers and followers public. Nobody needs that information, right? That's their friends, that's their family, that's all these people that the predators then grab onto and start sending the photos to. So this predator created a group chat and started posting this kid's sexual abuse material, right? Child sexual abuse material, explicit photos of this young man who was, I think, 14 at the time, to his friends and family. And dad, who is very tech savvy, reports it to Meta, reports it from his device, his kid's device, his computer, cell phones, multiple accounts. He starts getting like, we can't process, or we're still processing. He reports it every possible way. He even researches it. He records the whole thing. And he cannot figure out how to get through to Meta. It took 4 days for Meta to answer any of those reports. And before that group chat, where we're talking about a 14-year-old boy here, and literally every second that goes by, this kid is thinking there's another friend that just got added. There's a teacher. There's a relative. And it takes Meta 4 days after dad is reporting every possible way. Even then, Meta didn't confirm that it had taken down the account, so he decides to do some digging on his own. And this is just a couple of examples. I have dozens of these, and it's the same photos. And it's the same, and it's apparently a young woman who was on OnlyFans, right? And she's one of the most popular ones that they use. There are dozens, if not hundreds of accounts still out there to this day using that photo. He finds in a matter of minutes a bunch of these profiles. He starts writing Meta. That's just one quote. He also says, I need you to call the FBI. Children are dying. You know that this account is a predator. You already took down the group account. He is writing these letters to Meta. He's reporting every which way. And he's able to get 2 or 3 of these accounts down, and then they just stop responding. Like they stop doing anything. And it gets to the point where he has to stop because he is now hurting his own mental and physical health, because he is obsessing over all of the kids that are probably being harmed, and Meta knows and does nothing. In 2024, 2 years later, he did a quick check, and sure enough, there's dozens on Facebook and Instagram. We filed some of the evidence in a complaint recently in October, and I had a former engineer who's in this space doing advocacy and reform reach out and say, hey, just so you know, here's like 5 more of this picture on Reddit. Right? Instagram knows, Meta knows. This is one of the most common photos that's being used. This would be as simple as them saying, hey, we've got thousands of these. In a click of a couple buttons, we can figure out all these. So for this particular photo, these photos that are being used, only the person who actually comes forward and verifies it's them can use this photo. Instead, you've still got kids being extorted and sextorted by this predator. Predators, it's usually a network. Snapchat. Snapchat says it doesn't market to children. They said that in litigation because we said, Your Honor, they market the children. They said, no, we don't. We don't market the children. I recently looked up the Joe Camel. I don't know if you all remember how big of a scandal that was because Joe Camel was marketing to kids. I'm going to tell you right now, I should have put one of those up here. They have nothing on Snapchat. That is also part of why parents think it's safe, right? And I don't know if any of you all tried. I tried to open a Snapchat account like 10 years ago. I did not get it. I didn't understand it. I never used it. I was like, this is nuts. It is not meant for parents to understand it. One of the features I mentioned earlier, it's called My Eyes Only. It's a fully encrypted data vault. And until sometime in the last year and a half, it didn't even show up as an option. You had to literally know which direction to swipe. So this is a data vault within a product that is being marketed to kids. We ran a little test. This was actually the account, by the way. I've given my age there. See, this was the account that I opened 8 years ago and never used because I couldn't figure it out. So about a year ago, I opened it up. I'm not running any searches. I don't use it. I maybe opened it, tried it twice, closed it, or just sort of kept it closed. This is the Discover feature. So this is Snapchat's feed. This is not your friend feed. This would be like the TikTok For You feed. Right, so this is stuff, actually it's a little bit different though, because Snap actually says, we review all this stuff. Like this are paid advertisements. This is the stuff some of it that Snap's making money off of. So in court they've said like, look, we make sure that everything's appropriate, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're a 46-year-old female and you go onto Snapchat and you check out your Discover feed, well, I mean, this product's harmless. And I've had parents who are like, I opened an account to figure out what my kid was doing, it looked harmless. And so then we opened one for a 14-year-old male. No searches, no activity, just opened it, open Discover, and there's what we get. So this is the algorithm. This is what a 14-year-old boy is getting without running any searches. This is what Snap, through the Discover feed, not even the friend feed, this is just pure Discover. This is Snap's chosen content for all they know about this kid is 14-year-old boy, right? Versus adult female. I promise you that as a parent, your experience when you open an account on these products is incredibly different than what a teenager is experiencing. Snapchat has all of these, what we call dark patterns. They have a lot of little tricks here. I mean, the other thing is they say we don't market to kids, which it still makes me chuckle when I see things like the baby-looking animals with balloons. But also, so when you sign up, your friends are waiting for you. I was taught as a kid to beware of strangers. I think we still teach our kids, watch out for strangers, right? What we didn't plan for was that when you're looking at Snapchat, they're not strangers. Not according to these platforms. And I meet a lot of young women in particular who've been exploited, abused, sextorted. And when I speak with them, a common thing I hear is, look, I was 12. So yeah, at 17, I get it. I don't know these people. At 12, when Snap said, this is your friend, I didn't know that wasn't my friend. I was 12. This is the quick ad, right? So this is the user recommendation when we tried to navigate away. Not only are these your friends, but meeting with friends is what Snapchat is all about. Side note, this was a burner phone. We bought this phone at a Target or a Walmart. It had never been used. We had no Snapchat friends in there. It was a brand new phone number. Now, Snap will say, well, technically they recycle numbers, so it's possible the 200 people we recommended, and I'll show you what those recommendations were in a moment. It's possible that whoever had that phone last knew those 200 predators. And I say that because you're going to see in a moment who they were recommending after 3 15-minute sessions. Dark patterns. When you sign up, getting started, they ask your kids for access to their contacts. They ask your kids for access to all sorts of things. And they have these little dark patterns. And you'll see there, something like, tap allow when prompted. When it pops up, you can't see it so great in these pictures, but you've got the little light language back there. The whole thing is set up to get kids to give them access. If I did have a kid opening an account, one of the pieces of advice I give to them is don't allow anything. Because once they have these contacts, that's just more people that they're going to recommend to your kid. And if you have a child who's pretty safe about it, I'm like, well, I don't add anyone unless I know them. That that may seem like it would work, but the problem is once they get access to these contacts in particular, they will now start spamming those contacts. They will also now start sending someone to your child and say, oh, you have 2 friends in common. And so that's the other thing I hear commonly from kids is, but we had 2 friends in common. But if your child's friends are not as cautious, if they are adding anyone because they want the Snap score or the streaks or the friends on the map or any number of gamification rewards, this is really dangerous. I mean, this is giving them access to your phone. And the crazy thing is when we set up this account, it asked this 3 times in 3 different ways. Twice in succession, then we moved to the next step, then it came back. So it asked us this over and over and over, and the whole theory there, of course, is they'll just wear them down. Eventually you just say, allow, fine, stop asking me. Here's one of the test accounts. So we opened 3 test accounts. This is one. We signed up as a 16-year-old girl on Snapchat with a burner phone. I think that's probably a link to maybe the declaration where we talk about this, but we signed up and had no contacts on the device and had no Snapchat friends. So the first session we get on and they say, hey, here's all the quick ads, those user recommendations. We added from top to bottom. So we just added the first, I don't even know how many she added, maybe 5, 10, 15. And almost immediately in the stories, which is more like the friends, right? The people we added, these were the stories that our 16-year-old test users started getting. Right off the bat, one session. By our second, maybe third, I think it was second, 10, 15-minute session, you can see those quick ads based on the 5 to 10 people we'd accepted. Those are the quick ads that Snap was recommending, and I've blacked out anything that looks like it could be a real person's name. I don't know if you all can see that, but they're deeply disturbing. Those are the quick ad recommendations Snap was making to a self-identified 16-year-old after 2 or 3 10, 15-minute sessions. That was a purely Snapchat-led experience. There were no searches run on our part. It was literally just adding the top couple recommendations and seeing what would happen. And I will tell you folks, and a lot of young women have this experience, if you go to that link, I'm guessing you'll see it. It's not in here. That wasn't the most disturbing piece of it. The most disturbing piece was once she added a couple people on that quick ad, she started getting pictures and videos from random strangers. She started getting harassed. Some of those people were like, hey, why aren't you answering me? Hey, do you want to trade pics? Hey, and they will send photos, and the way Snap is set up, I've had a lot of young girls tell me about this feature. You can't preview the photo or anything, right? So if you are thinking these are my friends, you don't know, you open a photo and it's a giant dick pic. Like it takes up your whole screen. And I have talked to more young women than I can count who will say that was my first experience with anything sexual. It was Snapchat or Instagram, but usually, more often than not, it's Snapchat. Drug distribution on Snapchat, major issue. Right now, I believe fentanyl overdoses are the number 1, maybe the number 2 killer of American teens, which is insane. Snap denies that it's the source of the problem. I will tell you in our experience, anecdotally, we believe over 75% of the teens dying of fentanyl poisoning, right? And the poisoning distinction is they think they're getting a Percocet, they think they're getting marijuana, they think they're getting a vape pen, they think they're getting something other than fentanyl. It's laced with fentanyl, they die. Our estimate, just based on the hundreds that we represent and then the thousands that they've met of parents, is that over 75% of the kids that are getting drugs in connection with social media are coming through Snapchat. Now, we probably will never be able to prove it. I can tell you there was a group out of a California high school, I'm blanking on the name of the high school, but they won an award for modeling, right? So it's smart people who know what modeling is. I actually don't, but I know it has to do with them making predictions based on data. And they won this award because what they wanted to look at is Snap's involvement in fentanyl in the state of California, fentanyl distribution. And after 6 months, they had to run it again because they thought they'd made a mistake. And what they came up with on their modeling was the prediction, the modeling prediction, that by 2035, 90% of all fentanyl deaths in the state of California will be connected to Snapchat somehow. This is not a huge secret among kids. And I will often tell people if you have a teenager over the age of 15, preferably, younger they won't admit it, it's just ask them, hey, do you know what a plug is? Has Snap ever sent you a quick ad for a plug? And most of the time the kid will say, yeah, of course. I've met kids who are not involved in litigation in any way, shape, or form who said, well, yeah, everyone knows that's where you get your drugs, is on Snapchat, with their parents there. And I'm like, you think your mom knew that until just now? No. It is rampant on Snapchat. For years, it has been rampant. They met with some parents in 2021 who lost their children and begged them to give warnings, begged them to go on the news, begged them to tell people what was happening. We represent families whose kids died a year, 2 years, as recently as early 2024, and the family still had no idea that this was happening on Snapchat. This is one of my favorite slides. So, Snapchat. The other thing is it is designed to look harmless and to look fun and to look safe. When I talk to these young kids over and over, it's like I didn't know. I didn't know he was dangerous. It said he was a friend. We had friends in common. This is when you go on a Snap, you can't put a photo on, which, by the way, when it was first developed, you could. It changed over time when they realized their biggest users were kids. Snap was a sexting app. Actually, I realized not everyone knows this. So Snap was developed by some Stanford frat boys because, and at the time, Evan Spiegel, their emails that were leaked in 2014, Evan Spiegel was planning these ragers that included purchasing cocaine and what he called the Blackout Express. And these emails are just horrific. The things that they were saying in these emails are horrific. So the way the story goes, one of his friends came in and said, man, wouldn't it be great if we could send things and then have it disappear so that it didn't come back to us? And Evan Spiegel says, that's $1 million idea, $1 billion idea, it turns out. So they developed Snapchat. Snapchat does a bunch of things other apps don't do and that parents don't realize. One thing is if you screenshot someone else's Snap, it notifies them that you've screenshot it. We have begged them, please get rid of that feature. Kids that are being harassed want to take screenshots, but they're afraid because it will notify the other person. There is a feature within Snapchat that if you save a chat, so everything disappears by default, you have to go through hoops to save stuff. When you save it, and I just learned this recently, the other person knows that you saved it, and they can go into your account and delete stuff if they're on it, right? They can recall their message, basically. So we have a case with a drug dealer who sold to a young woman, and the young woman's sister gets on there and finds the discussion and says, hey, you SOB, you killed my sister. And as mom, dad, and sister are sitting right there watching, the messages start disappearing. The dealer just starts erasing them out of her account. There are a number of features like this with Snapchat that are wildly problematic. This is the Bitmoji creator. You cannot put a photo in Snapchat, you have to create a Bitmoji. You can feed a photo into Snapchat and it will create the Bitmojis for you. So when kids are on, you can see here who we used as our photos. This is what Snapchat is designed to do. It is designed to make strangers look harmless. It is designed to make strangers look like friends. It is designed to increase kids' engagement at any cost. And this is what kids see, and I don't know the name of it. There's a whole science behind the big eyes and the cheeks. It's actually a whole thing. There's a German name for it. It is meant to put people at ease. It is meant to make things seem harmless. That is what our kids are dealing with. So when we're like, well, I don't understand, why are people getting hurt on Snapchat? These are kids, right? Let's see what this is. This was a young woman, when she was 12, she began using Snapchat without her parents' knowledge. And I hear this a lot from young people, but I felt like I wanted to share this particular statement from a young woman. She was 15 when she told me this. They do have these features where you can report, and she tried, and then she stopped and realized she was on her own. And I hear that from young women often. Well, yeah, when I started using Snapchat or Instagram, I would report stuff. I'd report bullying, but it never stopped. It never stopped. This is in a recent Attorney General complaint. It's a Snapchat document. It's a Snapchat document in which an employee is complaining that there was an account with 75 different reports, nudes, minors, extortion, and the account was still active. So again, taking away sort of everything you know, these are products that are aimed at your kids. They're not aimed at us, they're aimed at our kids. And this is, you could report 75 times and they don't do anything. Let's see, TikTok. What's this one? This is a 12-year-old who was not allowed on TikTok, went to a friend's house. Friend was allowed on TikTok, so she starts using TikTok, and then she's like, oh, this is a lot of fun. And at the end, there's a slide that'll be TikTok admitting that it takes about 35 minutes for it to hook a kid. So within a short period of time, she really wants a TikTok. So she sneaks a TikTok. She starts using it. She is 12 at the time. She's actually in an account. So TikTok will have like these accounts. So they say, oh, it's a kid's account. So she's in an account where she can't direct message anyone. So it's identified this is a kid. She can't direct message anyone for her safety. And this is what it's sending her. Unprompted. She's athletic, by the way. A lot of these young women that we see, they're athletic, they're fitness conscious, and this is what it starts targeting her with. She ultimately is hospitalized. She is doing so well now. She's actually an advocate as well, and she is just killing it. She is incredible. She is incredible. Her mom, it works in the nutrition field actually, and the way that she finds out is that an article comes out, I think it's Wall Street Journal, it's called TikTok, The Corpse Bride or something to that effect, and grandpa sees the article, sends it to mom. They're trying to figure out what did we do wrong? Our kid's in the hospital, we don't understand, this isn't in the family, there's no influences, she was really great at sports, what happened? And the grandfather calls and says, you need to check her TikTok. And mom's like, well, because eventually, at that point, she's 14? Eventually they find out she's on TikTok. They can't physically stop her, but they're like, well, we're going to monitor and you can't. And they look at it. She's like, well, I did look at TikTok. You need to go back and you need to look at the For You page. So mom goes, opens it up, scrolls through, and it's this. There was another story I told earlier about a young woman who was in the hospital with an eating disorder. She'd been hospitalized, and TikTok had been feeding her this type of content constantly for quite a while. And mom goes to get some things from the house, comes back, and the young woman is in tears. She says, how does TikTok know where I am? What do you mean? Her algorithm had changed, and it had noticeably changed as she was admitted to the hospital and her mom left the room. Within that 1 hour period, the algorithm was no longer showing her this. Instead, it was now showing her how to fool your doctor into not knowing you have an eating disorder. So drink a bunch of water before weigh-ins. Things like that. And it was a noticeable enough change that this young woman was in tears. And look, hopefully we will someday find out in discovery. This is actually one of our bellwether cases, so this will be one of the first cases in the federal court to go to trial starting next year. The prevailing theory among experts would be, well, she logged into the hospital Wi-Fi network, right? So TikTok absolutely knew she was in the hospital. And that all everything gets fed into the algorithm. This came out, I know it says December, I think they put like the month ahead. It just came out in the last week or two. This is, does TikTok contribute to eating disorders? And the point I wanted to make on this study that just came out is that you'll see based on the study, well, users with eating disorders were slightly more likely to like the problematic video categories, right? So there was, when they did this testing, 23% more likely to like a problematic video. Those individuals got 335% more of the problematic content. That's the amplification of the algorithm, right? If they find a vulnerability, if they find an issue that they can exploit, it is designed to go in and exploit it. So you can like a couple more videos and all of a sudden you're getting 300% of the what is actually violating content. It violates the platform's own rules. This is Mason Edens. So look, with TikTok, each platform has its own harms, and it's such a pattern that we can often go in and figure out when these kids started using different platforms. We can predict what platform based on the harms. One of the biggest harms with TikTok, it's suicide and self-harm. And what we've seen, and I've seen the back-end data, right? I've seen 8-year-old kids searching for, not even 8, like 12, searching for BMX races and getting blackout challenge videos. And then they die attempting a blackout challenge video. This young man was 16. He'd gone through his first breakup, no history of mental health issues, beautiful family, beautiful home, popular kid, plays sports, goes through a really hard breakup, and mom is actually monitoring, even at 16, right? Mom is monitoring the TikTok. Sometimes he doesn't get the device, sometimes he does. Turns out he had a phone between the mattress, as many teens do. When they get their phone taken, they just get a backup. He is searching. One of the videos, you can see, I don't know if it's on there, but there's that search bar up there. So if there's nothing in the search bar, that's a For You page video. That means TikTok chose it. If there's something in the search bar, one of the things he searched shortly before this, all in the same time period, was inspirational quotes. And the inspirational quote he searched for, he got basically a heartbreak, like, yeah, you may never get over her. And then he started getting massive amounts of suicide and self-harm. Oh. Am I pushing the right thing? I'm going to play the video, which I wouldn't do if there were teenagers in here. And I want to preface it with, this is not the worst video that's on TikTok. It's not good, but it's not the worst. There we go.
Today, we're going to be exploring the top 10 reasons why I want to...
I have seen hundreds of these videos, hundreds and hundreds, possibly thousands. I think I quit at hundreds. I actually started seeing a psychologist myself 4 months into doing this work, and that was after a particularly long week in which I was looking at a 16-year-old boy's TikTok videos, and at the end of the week, I realized that I needed mental health help. And I now don't watch, I don't look at 16-year-old boys who died by suicide. I don't look at their data for more than 30 minutes a day and more than 3 days a week, and it's rarely that. I typically do 2 days a week max. What I can say is that that is not the worst video out there. It's pretty bad. There are thousands, if not millions, of teenagers that are being fed this by TikTok, that are not searching for it, that are being fed it. And it's not one video, it's over and over and over and over. And when you combine that with the addiction, with the compulsive use, these are kids that are not getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. These are kids that are lucky if they're getting 4 or 5. It is making them more emotional. It is causing more problems, and it is normalizing and making all of this seem like a viable option. Right? And so the example I always give is with myself seeing a counselor or a therapist. I wasn't contemplating suicide, but there was this moment where I was having a really tough day, and I remember thinking like, well, yeah, it makes sense why some people choose that. And I was like, whoa, wait a sec. I'm in my 40s, and that thought has never once gone through my head. And if I'm in my 40s with the dream job, literally, there's nothing in the world I would rather do more than be right here at this moment. If I'm in my 40s with a home, beautiful children, and I have a rough day, and I'm literally like, oh, I get it, suicide makes sense, that is a real problem, right? Because if I've got all those anchors, what hope does a 16-year-old kid that just went through his first breakup have? And by the way, this is not a one-off either. I have met multiple families whose 16-year-old children, boys and girls, died by suicide after being pushed into a rabbit hole like this by TikTok. After a breakup, after an issue that happened, it became relentless. Back when the House was passing the TikTok ban, I think they call it, I had a couple of young people reach out to me and say, hey, I'm getting these from TikTok all the time. And I always like to raise this because these platforms like to say, well, we're a neutral platform. We're just a communication tool. We're not pushing. Like this is, the kids are on there. It's third parties. We can't control it. And so I always love the fact that when Congress was looking to pass a law, it's the divestment where they're trying to say to TikTok, either sell to an American company or you're out. They started pushing this to heavy TikTok users. And actually what happened is the House of Representatives started getting phone calls from kids saying, if you do this, I'll kill myself. And it backfired on TikTok because instead of getting them to back down, they realized, wow, if that's the power this product has over our children, it's worse than we thought it was. TikTok document, they estimate that all it takes to hook an average user is, can anyone see that number? I can't. 260, thank you. Which, if they're 8-second videos, you're talking about 35 minutes. That's the control number for the document. So that is a TikTok document. It takes on average somewhere in the 35 minutes to an hour to hook users. So if your kid's at a friend's house and they're on TikTok, 35 minutes will do it. It's hard with what I do for a living. So my oldest boys are 9. I have 9, 9, 6, and 4. And they're the reason I'm here. I don't know if I'd mentioned that earlier, but when I met our founder, Matt Bergman, and when I watched The Social Dilemma, and I realized these companies knew what they were doing. I had no idea this was an issue. My kids had tablets. My kids watched YouTube Kids. I thought I was doing everything by the book. I had no idea it was an issue. And after seeing The Social Dilemma and our first complaint that SMVLC filed, which was an 11-year-old Selena Rodriguez, who was doing fine. Age 9, she gets an iPad. By age 11, she's gone. And she's posted that video on Snapchat. And it's, one of her last medical records, it's a quote from her that says, social media makes it hard. And so after seeing that, as a parent, I was like, man, the universe put me right where I needed to be. My specialty was electronic discovery and fraud and forensic investigation. I was a 20-year litigator and represented big companies, manufacturers, distributors, designers, loved what I did, and I realized that had been what I was working for my whole career, was this opportunity to protect my kids. So YouTube. That's from January of 2024, I want to say. And what had happened is, that's from my phone, and we had gone to my grandmother-in-law's 100th birthday party at a care facility. And the kids were in the video room. It never occurred to me. They were watching a movie, probably Frozen or something. These were all little kids. The oldest one was maybe 11 or 12. Never occurred to me that these kids would be able to get on social media while I was in the next room. So I walk in, and I am that parent. I walk in and I see YouTube, and I'm just like, you have got to be kidding me. And for whatever reason, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna sit down and record. Maybe I'm wrong. No, I didn't think I was wrong. I sit down and record for a few seconds this Peppa Pig, which my kids love, by the way. And what pops up a few seconds in, and I have this on video, but what pops up is this face on, who is that? It's the little dinosaur that George is holding. This face pops up. And immediately, because of what I do for a living, I recognize this face. I have seen this face in those videos that had me going to a psychiatrist, a psychologist. I have seen that face. That face is associated on both TikTok and I believe Discord. Someone told me this is a very widely used image when it comes to extremism, alt-right stuff, suicide, self-harm. And so immediately I was like, my kids, get out of the room now, you're done. And I actually had a talk with some of my cousins, which was hard to have, and I said, look, nobody wants me in here talking about this. I just want to show you this video. There was another one after this too. It was George and Peppa, and I think Peppa or George was coughing, and there was a voice dubbed over, and it was like, oh, it's COVID. And at that point I said, turn off the TV, I don't even want to know what comes next. So this is what these kids were watching, and there you can see that's a video from TikTok that was sent to a 16-year-old boy. That is one of the more disturbing videos I've seen. But so this is, and by the way, folks, this is how these platforms work together. Certain video games, when you have access to, like kids will go on to, what is it? I'm blanking on the name. So one is YouTube. Is it Twitch? Twitch, I think, like a video game platform, and then Discord, right? Discord you see everywhere. It's attached to games everywhere. So the thing is, these images pop up all the time on these platforms. And we have not found all the threads yet. People are still investigating, but I'm going to tell you right now, I've seen these particularly young boys who are on the spectrum. These images will start appearing in their online social media experiences early and often. And they will become second nature, right? It will be, hey, I'm watching YouTube. This was actually a particularly Caucasian young boys. This was a Caucasian young boy. He had signed on. This was the crap that he was getting, part of my language, but this is the crap he was getting. And that is pretty common. That was if there were younger folks, we were gonna block it. YouTube, so it's not just content on YouTube. I have people that are like, oh, but I watch YouTube, I make sure it's okay. One thing that most people don't know on YouTube Kids, it's my understanding, if you don't have an account, so when my kid was watching it, I just went on to YouTube Kids. I never opened an account. If you don't have an account, it's my understanding there's no monitoring whatsoever. Like they make no guarantees that it's appropriate for children, and so things can pop up. And things have popped up, by the way. What are the, like Momo, and I don't know if you folks know what I'm talking about. There's like all these scary sort of pop culture images, and in the past, they have been known to pop up on like YouTube Kids and YouTube. The problem with YouTube, though, is not content or just content. It is the form. It is the dopamine, right? It's the hits of dopamine that it's giving kids. It's the short form. So one thing I tell parents, here's the reality. YouTube is so ingrained in our culture. If you have a teenager or even a 10-year-old or whatever who's already on YouTube, the chances of you getting them off of it are slim. So one piece of advice I gave a parent recently who had a 14-year-old was, okay, so it's never gonna happen. If you stop this 14-year-old, he's gonna get access somewhere. Instead, why don't you make a game up? And the game is, hey, for the next month, for the next week, however long you think, let's make a deal. You don't watch any YouTube video under 20 minutes. And if you can do that at the end, we'll do, I don't know, pizza party, like something that your child enjoys doing, right? Because one of the biggest harms with YouTube is actually the form. It's the YouTube Shorts, for example. Those are friggin' terrible. They are impacting our kids' ability to focus and concentrate. It is immediate gratification. My daughter was almost 4 when I started this work. And as I mentioned earlier, she had 30 minutes of screen time a day, which is under at age, almost 4, right? That was like, oh man, we're parents of the year. 30 minutes is like nothing, except it was 30 minutes on YouTube Kids, which I thought was perfectly fine. After meeting with an expert who explained this little piece to me, I went home and said, nope, YouTube Kids is gone. We can watch Netflix Kids, we can watch Disney Plus. And I figured it was a piece of cake to the kids. I said, nope, YouTube, no more YouTube. And so that next day, her 30 minutes was coming up. I said, we're not doing YouTube anymore. It's gone. I've deleted it from the TVs. My 4-year-old child at that point lost it. I have never seen her act that way. She cried for 20 minutes. She was inconsolable. She tried breaking things. She tried coloring on the wall, anything that would get us to give her YouTube Kids. And if I did not do the work that I do, honestly, I probably would have said, you know what? It can't be that harmful. Give her the damn screen for 30 minutes. Instead, we spent 3 weeks weaning her off YouTube Kids. So every couple of days, we decreased the time by 5 minutes. We turned on Netflix Kids, we turned on Disney. And the best part about this, so after 3 weeks, we had her off YouTube Kids, thank God. I still feel bad as a parent, because we always do, we're parents. I still feel bad that I realize now my 3-year-old child had an issue with dependency on this product. But now, one of the best things about it is that with Netflix, particularly Disney Plus, because they don't have that continuous play, I don't really have to monitor screen time anymore. They lose interest, especially on Disney. If they watch a show on Disney and then it doesn't continuous play, that's all the time your kid's brain needs to be like, man, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go get a snack. And as they go get a snack, they're like, oh, it's really sunny outside. Hey, my friend's out back, I'm gonna go play. Or, hey, were we gonna do my math homework? Well, no kid ever said that, right? Hey, were we gonna do this art project? Were we gonna blow up balloons? Were we gonna do something? And these companies know that. That is built into the design. They do not want your children to think, hey, I'm gonna do something. It is designed to not give their brain even a 1-second break. Even the speed of the algorithm, it is in real time. That algorithm is learning in real time the thing that will keep your child engaged, and you as well. It's just more effective with kids. So now that we have Netflix and Disney, I don't really monitor the TV. There's less than 2 hours a day, easy, because it's not as interesting. But again, if you can't get rid of YouTube, I recommend seeing if you can get your kid to agree, I'm not gonna watch any videos under X minutes. That'll help. It's X minutes. If you can get them to agree to 30, I would recommend, right? 30 is the length of a sitcom. 20 minutes is better than 5. 5 is better than 1. It's that, the YouTube Shorts in particular, it's the short form, it's giving them these constant dopamine hits, it's giving them instant gratification, it's giving them that lack of, the other thing, and nobody really likes to hear this, but CoComelon. I don't have a major problem with CoComelon. If you're gonna give your kids something, look, there's a lot worse things, but just so people know, there's a reason that kids love CoComelon. And when you tell parents there is a kids show that's pretty addictive, they'll be like, is it CoComelon? Everyone. CoComelon started as a YouTube show. And 3 of the tricks that they use are frames per second. CoComelon has like the highest frames per second of any show, so it's constantly flickering. And if you watch it, I sat down and was like, let's see if this is true. Oh my God. We don't notice it. Kids don't either, but their brains do. CoComelon has high contrast colors, which we all know, those bright colors. That is another little trick they play on kids' brains. It also has, I don't know what the word is, like a diverge, it's the sound, the way the sounds come. So if you watch CoComelon, the reason kids look like they are sort of dependent on CoComelon or they're just so engaged, it's not the content, it's not the quality of the content. It's little tricks they've built into the show that are targeted at essentially exploiting vulnerabilities. Again, of all the exploitation that happens through these apps, through these products, CoComelon is the least of our worries in some ways. Discord. Discord is now rated 17 plus in app stores. I don't know when that changed. Discord, by and large, does not have the same addictive mechanisms with kids. I think, I've seen people refer to it as very dangerous. To my knowledge, they don't, encrypted. To my knowledge, they don't use encryption, which Meta is now going to. That is a point in Discord's favor. I do think they target to young kids, and there is a reason a lot of extremist content ends up on Discord. There's a reason. There's really bad stuff that happens on Discord. This slide, so this is Can we drop the... So this is the 14-year-old young woman I told you about in side notes. So her parents, all of these families that I've told you about, these families have all explicitly approved use of these materials. Not only have they approved use, they have consistently and over said, if this can help one kid, show and tell anyone you need to. Use what you need to use. These families, including all the ones in litigation, they are not motivated by money, because the question is, how much would you charge for 2 years of your kid's life? Nothing. So this is a 14-year-old. They had already said to the school, please don't give my child access to a device. She's getting on social media. She was at one point suicidal. She was being exploited. We have everything locked down. The school said, sorry, it's the curriculum. And you can see, so we get into the Discord account, and you can see her being like, I can't watch at home. My dad has turned off my Wi-Fi. My phone doesn't have the App Store or search engine. She had a Gab phone. And she's being actively exploited in class. This is not what parents want, and also this is not what teachers want. This is a terrible position teachers are being put in. We need to find a way to address this issue that is not blaming schools per se, but we do need schools to step up, and we need schools to turn back around to the manufacturers of these products. In this case, it is a Chromebook. Google, who also is YouTube, makes those Chromebooks. Google markets them to schools. Google says here, and if you want to buy software, you can. Software is ineffective, and Google knows it. Any software you make, someone else can make better software. Low-income areas, those schools cannot even afford software in the first place, so those kids get hit harder. Instead, what the hope is that eventually we go to Google and say, look, you need to fix your products or someone else will, right? You make a computer where the network is limited to the school district. Get us a computer where kids genuinely cannot get on YouTube or any of these other products. They could do all of that. They choose not to, because we are making their money for them. I think it might have just... We've absolutely been Trojan horse, and they're really good at it. I can't tell you when Mark Zuckerberg was talking about the metaverse, and he's like, we're going to have this in every hospital, we're going to have it in medical, we're going to have it in sports, we're going to have it in schools, I wanted to take out an ad and be like, people, seriously, if we let this happen, that's it. Right? If we let these companies take over our classrooms, take over our hospitals, like, we will have no ability to fix anything. And thankfully the metaverse flopped. Chromebooks, Wi-Fi access, classroom apps. There is a lawsuit out there against some of these ed tech companies. My kids are still young enough that I'm not gonna have to go into their school, I think until like 5th or 6th grade when they sort of up it. But I was made to do the parent-teacher night the other night for 3 of them. And each of these teachers was telling me, oh, they can go on this and this and this app. And I had to tell each of them, so here's the thing. This is what I do for a living. It is difficult for me to sit here and see my child touching a computer without me knowing what's actually being done. We talked about their safety features, and I was like, okay, great. But I said, I need to let you know the reason I haven't come into the school and asked to know every piece of data that's being collected is because I'm trying not to be that parent, and I haven't seen any warning signs as of yet. I'm not. But that doesn't mean it won't happen someday. There's a lawsuit against these ed tech companies where a parent essentially went and requested all the data from their kids. I mean, they had whole files on these kids, right? These ed tech companies, there's supposed to be rules regulating them. They collect personal data from your children. It's probably a flyer you all get at the beginning of the year, and you sign it because you have to send your kid to school. Ultimately, though, what happens is you can't control what the school is signing off on, and you can't control what they're collecting from your kids. In one case I had talked to someone about, they actually had like videos from PE. Now, I don't know if that was ed tech specifically. I know that when the parent asked for the files, they had videos of her child playing basketball at PE. In the file for educational purposes or whatever it is, right? So there are people working on that though, trying to rein that in, trying to make things more transparent. At the end of the day, what we need are for schools to start standing up and saying, hey, like, yes, this has made our life easier in some ways, but it also isn't, and it's not safe for kids. Emma, okay, so with schools, this is the normalization piece here. And why it is important that we start talking with our schools, why we talk to our kids about all these issues. Emma Claire was not allowed to have Snapchat And in 2020, she appealed her parents' decision to not allow Snapchat. She created these great boards that were very convincing. Among the reasons were her basketball group. I see this all the time. Her basketball group only communicated by Snapchat. Her group chats with your class for homework. There are teachers that would allow the class to do group chats for homework. And so her parents said yes. And she was gone within a year. Michael Brewer, his mom also said no Snapchat. His lacrosse coach showed him these really cool Snapchat filters. I am guilty of this 100%. I remember before doing this work, also playing with those Snapchat filters with my children. They love those things. They're adorable, right? Part of the problem, it's hard because they are harmless in and of themselves. Part of the issue then, of course, is the kids are getting acclimated to it. It becomes like, oh yeah, it's Snapchat filters. So Michael opens an account without his mom knowing because the lacrosse coach is showing him Snapchat filters. Michael actually survived. He on his 13th birthday, he's a kid and he made a stupid choice. I'm not excusing the stupid choice. I am saying he's a kid and kids are supposed to be able to learn from mistakes. It was the cool thing at school. He got a dealer to drop off a Percocet from Snapchat at his window on Christmas Eve, I believe. He turned 13 on Christmas. His mom had a weird feeling, goes to check on him, and they were able to save him. He does have permanent brain damage and he is in a wheelchair. He is getting better by the day. This was 3-4 years ago. He is incredible. He also is an advocate. It took him a year to start speaking again, and one of the things when he read about these issues, when he read about people holding these companies accountable, one of the things he said is, I had to use my voice to help other kids. And one of the other things he told me, so when I asked him, well, hey, you were 12, what happened? Why were you looking for this stuff? He said, Laura, I didn't know what marijuana was when I opened a Snapchat. I'd never heard of it. It's not something my parents did. It's not something my friends did. I was 12 years old. I wanted the filters. I wanted to be popular. I wanted to chat with my friends. I didn't want to be left out. And almost immediately, what happened is I started getting, and I accepted all those quick ads because I wanted friends. I wanted my Snap Map to be full. I wanted to be popular. So I accepted those quick ads, and I started getting drug menus. And all my friends started getting drug menus. He said, I remember distinctly at one point when they had those anti-smoking campaigns, he said I would get people smoking pot, young people, teenagers, and then I'd get an anti-smoking campaign right next to it. And it was all over my feed, and I was 13 at the time and I was stupid and I made a mistake. A quote from a first grader, if YouTube is dangerous, why does our teacher at school show us YouTube videos in class? This was my first grader at the time. And I'm happy to report that my kids know enough about this that they always come home and when anyone mentions social media, they're like, Mom, so-and-so said this about TikTok, is that true? So this was a complete, if it's dangerous, it actually was not his teacher, and I know because I asked her very nicely. It was a substitute teacher. And his teacher said, oh, don't worry, I won't. Now here's the hard part. There's a lot of really good educational stuff on YouTube, right? They do that on purpose. The problem is when teachers are using that to show kids, they're not distinguishing. I've even talked to some kids who are like, yeah, I had assignments where I had to go on and watch certain YouTube things. The problem is it's just another card stacked against parents, right? Because now you have parents that don't know much about YouTube and kids are like, man, my teacher said I gotta watch this for my homework. What parent is gonna think, well, that's an inherently dangerous product? No, it's my kid's homework. YouTube's fine, it's educational. What can we do to fix this? So I see I've got quotes around fix. Unfortunately, the answer is, look, this is a high hill we're climbing. It's designed to be this way. So first and foremost, if you can wait, please wait. Please wait. It's not popular to say that. I know people, this is not censorship. This is not banning. I don't let my kids smoke cigarettes. I don't let my kids drink alcohol. There's a sip here or there at Christmas. It's different. I don't let them drink alcohol. I don't let them smoke cigarettes. And the problem is these companies have marketed and sold us these products for decades and have said they are safe. They still are in front of Congress to this day, swearing under oath that their products are not addictive and they're not designed to be addictive, despite the documents I've shown you where they actually use the word, they have an addict's narrative. Early on in some of the meta documents, all public documents, they use the word, hey, this is addiction the way I was taught it, and the answer internally in these public documents is, we don't like to use the word addiction, we use problematic use. So they've been talking about this for years. It's literally how it's designed. And we didn't know. And many people still don't know because these companies still say it's not true. One of the narratives they used to use is, it's not like a drug, it's more like sugar or shopping, a little bit in moderation. The answer to that is we are not seeing children kill themselves because they don't get the last piece of chocolate cake. We are seeing children kill themselves when you take away social media. Quite a few, actually. When I first joined the firm in early 2022, I got a cold call from a doctor at Orange County Children's, and she said, I'd like to tell you everything I've seen over 30 years, because she started her career at Orange County, and then she was there 30 years later. And so we got on a phone call, and this was early on, and one of the things she said is, when parents came in and said, my child has a problem with social media, we used to tell them, take away the phone. We used to tell them that, and then too many of those parents came back and said, I did, and my child died by suicide. She said, we no longer tell parents to take away the phone. We realize it's a loss trigger. I mean, these are doctors at Orange County's Children's saying we no longer tell parents to take away the phone because you risk losing your child to self-harm or suicide. She says, now we tell them, let them have an hour a day at the dining room table where you can be there and sort of monitor them. Right, so you've got 30-year doctors who are saying this is a real problem. Side note, I met with her recently as well, and she said, when I started Orange County Children's 30 years ago, we never once in my career did I see a 12-year-old child die by suicide on purpose. That was something that never happened 30 years ago. You might see every couple months, once a year, a 12-year-old child who died accidentally doing something dangerous. Now, she said at Orange County Children's, it is a monthly, if not a weekly occurrence. 12-year-old children who are dying by suicide, 11-year-old children. That's just not, her point was that's not the way brains are wired. Their brains. That's not the way their brains are wired. But it's what is getting pushed to them. A related note on that is that I now typically ask young people when I meet with them, have you ever been pushed a suicide or murder video? I'm going to say roughly 20% of kids say yes. Now that number goes up typically, and I don't have enough of a scientific background or the numbers to prove this with scientific certainty, but my own observations are that number typically goes up in low income and racially diverse areas. The number typically goes down in higher income, less racially diverse areas. There is a certain degree of algorithmic discrimination that is happening. We talked about it earlier with young girls getting pushed all of these predators and adult women not. When I've debated this point and talked about it with some legal professionals, like, well, technically, is that discrimination? I don't think it is. I don't care what you call it. It is. It doesn't technically meet the definition, maybe, I'm not convinced. But when you are targeting young girls with predators, you are targeting teenagers with drugs, you are targeting depressed children with suicide content, like that to me is discrimination. And it's a problem they know they have. Our experts have said they could fix it if they wanted to. So wait if you can. I've had people say to me, oh, you're just going to wait till kids are 18 and throw them into the deep end. And the answer is like, one, we learn how to do a lot of things without I can teach my kids about social media. I can also teach them about the internet and teach them to use that and they'll be just fine. As far as age, yes, 16 to 18 is a critical development point. Every year you can wait, every year your child can wait, it gives their brain just a little bit of a better chance, right? A little bit of a better chance not to be harmed is bad, to be okay. They're still, the companies as currently operating, as the products are currently designed, they're still gonna be exploited. The companies are gonna try, but if they start at 18, they might be okay. At the same time, the reality is many parents can't, right? So one is a lot of folks, I mean, it's like me when I had a 3-year-old. If that 3-year-old was 13, I don't believe I would have been able to wean her off YouTube. It's because she was almost 3, almost 4. She was young enough that she had no autonomy, and I was able to just say, well, 25 minutes today, 20 minutes, 15. And ultimately, it was sort of a bait and switch that we did. We'll have a treat afterwards. We'll do this. At 13, the reality is you probably can't. They will get access if they want it. Everyone they know is using This Is So Hard. I will fully admit my oldest children who are 9, they have a Nintendo Switch. Now I have the parental controls on, and I go through, I struggle sometimes because they really love that switch. They get a max 1 hour a day, and I've gotten them down to almost only 3 days a week, but that's only when I can be there every day to say, no, not today. Let's go play soccer. Let's go do something else. Everyone they know is using, and that is a real problem. It's a real problem when your kid is in tears because everyone they know is using, because nobody wants their kid to be the one left out. They can use at school, we saw that, via school devices, via friends' phones. That's just simply, you can't stop them often. I met a parent a couple months ago who's like, I've deleted YouTube probably 5 times from my TV. I have not yet found a button on my TV that will keep it deleted. So at this point, my options are to lock my child in his room 24/7, which is not realistic, to get rid of every TV in the house, which I'm seriously contemplating, even though I don't know what, come on, that's not right. I don't know. Or to literally just keep checking the TV once a day, and every time I see that he's put YouTube back on behind my back, delete it. It is a crazy situation that parents are in. And of course, no parent can be with their child 24/7. So if you can't, let's see, $50, all it takes to get a phone. If you can't, number one, look, if you have a school that's open to talking, if you have parents that are open to talking, please talk to your school. Every school that we get to look into these issues is helping more than one kid. And that is there's the Phone Free School Movement, is an organization, a nonprofit right now. I'm on the Safety Advisory Board. They have a whole toolkit for schools that want to try it. I will tell you, the schools that have done it so far, the folks that I've talked to, it has been incredibly successful. Yeah.
Sorry, what was that called?
The Phone Free School Movement. PhoneFreeSchoolMovement.org, I believe. They have a whole toolkit on there for administrators. More than that, if you have a school that really, really wants to try and they need extra help, reach out to me, reach out to them. They will help. And so far, the schools that have done it, one school said the worst thing that has happened, the lunchroom has gotten loud. It has gotten loud. They're like, it's amazing, but you know what hasn't gone up? They have fewer detentions. They're having fewer fights at school. They're having fewer, kids are reporting less depression, anxiety, all of that. I can't wait to see those numbers 2-3 years down the road, because that is what we're going to see, is we're going to see kids getting better. I'm also hoping, look, in Europe, they've got regulation passed. I'm hoping that in 2 years down the road, I hope we get it fixed before then. But if nothing else, if we can get some countries that are really taking a hard stand on it, then we can look at their data in 2 years, right? We can see their suicide rates dropping 5-fold. And maybe then we can get our regulators to say, oh, let's actually do something about this. Communicate and be honest, this one's hard for me, about the risks. So talk to your kids. It is really hard a lot of times, especially with the compulsive use. Kids feel like they can't talk to their parents. I will also tell you, there's a ton of videos on TikTok where they say, hey, your parents don't understand you. TikTok knows you better than your parents. You can't talk to your parents, right? Make sure your kids can talk to you. And that is really hard when it's stuff that we don't want to know about, but we do. It's important that you have a dialogue. If your kid is using social media and you can't stop them, the best you can do is to at least try and understand what's going on and make yourself a safe space so that if something goes bad, they can tell you. If your son gets sextorted, instead of taking his life, he says, hey, remember you told me if this ever happened to come tell you? I'm telling you. What do I do? All of these things, just do your best to communicate. Also the harm. So my oldest boys are 9. I don't tell them everything. I certainly don't show them videos. They're not allowed anywhere near my devices because I do have work-related stuff on it. But we do talk about these kids. Amy Neville, who's absolutely incredible, her son Alex was 14, died of fentanyl poisoning. She is a warrior. She goes out and goes to schools. She does education, outreach. She refused to give up even when SNAP said, you don't have a chance, you can't sue us. She said, like hell, I can't. And I forgot, there we go. Amy Neville came over and met the kids, and she was talking about her son Alex, and I said, hey, where's Alex now, right? And so she said, oh, Alex died, which they knew because I'd already told them about Alex. They know. And it is, what did I have? A couple weeks ago, someone said, well, do you think that's healthy for them? And I said, well, did your parents tell you not to take candy from strangers? Mine did. They told us not to get into the unmarked white van, right? We tell kids all the time, don't cross the street, you might get hit by a car. We warn them. We give them these warnings. We arm them with knowledge so they can make good choices. We've got to start doing that with social media. We've got to arm them with knowledge, including fentanyl poisoning. Google it, right? I use Brave browser. Look it up online. Fentanyl poisoning. Talk to your kid if they're of Snapchat age, if they're using Snapchat, and make sure they know that anytime they take a pill or smoke pot and they don't know for a fact that source, they are playing Russian roulette. Because something like 60 or 70%, according to the DEA, of these drugs that are out there right now online, on Snapchat, on other social media platforms, primarily Snap, are laced with fentanyl. Let's see. Safe device options. This is tough because honestly, you can buy all the safety in the world, and you saw on that school device that it didn't change anything, but it's still something to explore. My 9-year-olds in the summers, they like to wander around the neighborhood. This summer, now that they're 9, I got them Apple Watches, and I signed them up for kids, and I said they're 9. They make you verify your email, and they have to give me their password, and it has to be plugged in every night. And now at 9, I can do that. I hope they fix these products by 12 or 13, because at 12 or 13, it's harder to do. One warning I will give you, though, when I did that, despite having to verify a parent email, so clearly knowing my child was 9, it then said, okay, you've now set up the accounts, you can use these accounts, and if you ever want to come back and change the settings for any reason, you can. Having zero trust for these companies, I went back immediately and I checked every clickable button that Apple offered. I checked it. If it was clickable, I clicked it. And the wildest thing is, all of those settings were set to the most permissible. Marketing was set. Being able to talk to random strangers on the internet was set. Being able to access the internet was set. During games, being able to direct message was set. I was shocked. I mean, even with the work I do, I was still shocked. Because Apple had gone through the motions of saying, oh, this is a kid. We need you to verify as a parent. Okay, you're all set now. Just come back if you ever want to change anything. They had everything that, of course I wanted to change it, right? So I always warn parents when you're looking at these products, particularly if it's Apple or a company that is not benefiting from safety, make sure you check every clickable link that's out there. Let's see, get involved. We talked about some of this earlier, the whole, even with YouTube being able to, and look, this is hard, right? But little tips and tricks on this, like the YouTube, trying to get your kid to say, hey, why don't we only watch videos that are 20 or 30 minutes or more? TikTok, I have talked to many parents who are like, wow, TikTok dance videos, it's great. My advice is, look, if I can't talk you out of TikTok, have an agreement with your kid that you get to check their For You feed every other day for 5 minutes. They can look over your shoulder. You're not going to look at their messages. Check their For You feed, please. And even if it's 2 times a week, check it and don't get complacent. It could be silly dance videos until one day it's not. And that's what we see over and over. It's silly dance videos until your kid goes through a breakup, or until your kid has a tough day at school and looks something up that TikTok decides means they want to send them self-harm and suicide content. And so if you do that, and in some cases, in one case, the client was trying to figure out what was going on. I was like, hey, based on what you're describing, watch that For You feed. And she's like, I didn't need 5 minutes. I just needed 1 minute to figure out what was going on. So parents that do allow, I always just say, look, have an agreement with your kid. Yeah, I'll allow TikTok, but I got to check your feed for 5 minutes and watch the video and watch the full 5 minutes. You have a right to know. I mean, these companies always say, one of their taglines was, you're the only one that has the right to decide what your kid gets to watch. And they're doing that when they fight government legislation, right? So they can keep the government out of there. But the reality is they're choosing what your kids watch. That is something you can do with TikTok just to be in the know, because kids are not going to spot the subtleties of what they're being shown. The programming, by the way, it's bait. So, for example, I mean, I've seen feeds for long periods of time, and what I found and what our experts have confirmed, it's about bait. So it's this A/B testing they do. Like, do you like puppies or kittens? Kittens? Okay. Do you like house cats? But they're doing this at incredible speeds with massive amounts of data, and they're baiting. They're going to the extreme, right? Think about you drive by on the freeway and there's a car accident on the side. Now, as an adult, I will often tell myself, don't look. I don't need to look. It doesn't concern me. I'm not going to look, and it's really hard not to look. Kids are always going to look. And so what they do is they bait kids. And so I have many times seen an account where a kid is searching for video games or unicorns or puppies or something totally harmless. And you might get a bunch of silly dance videos and puppies and unicorns. And then and the reason I say 5 minutes is, at least for me, it usually only takes about 5 minutes for one of those hooks to be put out. You will get some random, here's how to tie a noose. And that's an actual example, I'm not even kidding. Here's how to tie a noose. Or something randomly violent or self-deprecating, or and if the kid scrolls past, then fine, you'll get another 5-10 minutes of puppies and kittens and dance videos. The crazy thing is, when you go into these suicide rabbit holes, the converse is not true. And I have accounts that I've monitored over periods of years where they haven't even been used anymore, and it is a complete rabbit hole. In fact, Bloomberg did a piece at one point, and the reporter and I were looking at this, and she was like, oh my God, we've been looking at this for like 10 minutes. Where are the silly dance videos, right? The converse is not true. If your kid is in a suicide and self-harm rabbit hole, TikTok is not gonna send them a puppy or a kitten or a unicorn to see if they'll bite, because that's not how it's being programmed. Because puppies and unicorns and kittens don't keep these kids hooked. Extremes do, right? It's unfortunately human nature. So check the feed features. Parental controls. Some of these apps are saying, oh, we have these parental controls. Look, if you have a kid who's willing to let you set those up and you want to go in and check them out, that's great. Please don't rely on those, because it's really easy for your kid to open a second account that doesn't have the parental controls. So particularly if you're relying on it to say, well, I'm only going to allow a TikTok because I can use parental controls now, but if you're on the fence, do no TikTok, because it's not going to keep your kids safe. What it's going to do is it's going to get them used to TikTok, right? 35 minutes, according to TikTok, is all they need to hook your kid. Average user. Create the account yourself and act like you. And this is something that is so counterintuitive and shows how dangerous these products are, which is, and it's wild that this is even the advice I give. If you're going to let your kid have a Snapchat, go open it for yourself, use your age, use your information, and use it. Use it for a week or 3 weeks or a month or however long you can, then give it to your child. Because that experience that product is going to be exponentially safer than one that your child opens. Same for Instagram, same for TikTok. I do not know any adults who get murder and suicide videos on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. None. I know a lot of kids who do. So that is one of the early on, sort of the biggest piece of advice I would give is, look, if you're gonna do it, open the account and use it like an adult, and then let your kid use it. It's safer. It's not safe, but it's safer. I think that's it. This was from a kid presentation. There are some additional resources up here for people to check out. Nikki Reisberg, who I absolutely adore. Julie Scelfo has started Mama. It's like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, but it's Mothers Against Media Addiction, not just for moms, it's all parents. When we say moms in this regard, we're talking about all parents. Archwell, the Parents Network. If you know any parents who are dealing with social media harms, this is a parent support network that is being run by parents. Archwell is a nonprofit out of California. They are incredible. They started this roughly 2 years ago. It was a pilot program with a bunch of the families we work with. It is now available nationally and globally. They are branching out. I think they're in Canada, the UK. It is just a support group. There are parents you can talk to. If you know anyone or even suspect, check it out yourselves. It's a great resource. Nikosi, Parents Together is a great organization. I think I have, I should have, the Fair Play should be on here. There it is, Fair Play, Childhood Beyond Brands. Parents Together is a great advocacy org. Phone Free School Movement. Alexander Neville, I was telling you about Amy, she will come out, like if you have schools that want her to come out, she will come out and give talks on anything the school needs help with. Design It For Us is a youth advocacy group that is created and run by young people. They are absolutely incredible. If you know older teens who want to get involved, look up Design It For Us. Take Justice Back, that's pretty recent. It's a mailing list where you can get updates on legislation, and of course SMBLC. It's a lot of info. If folks have questions, though, I'm happy. Yeah. Funny you should ask, because about a week ago, one of my kids' friends came over with his Switch, and he had, is Fortnite the one we were talking about earlier? Yeah, and he had Fortnite on it. And so they played Fortnite for the first time, and then they said, can we get Fortnite, please? And so I researched it. I researched it for a while. My wife, actually, so she's in this Peloton moms group, and she even asked, can I take a poll of how many people let their kids play Fortnite and how old they are? Look, this is a tough question. Here's what I would say. There are many worse things out there than Fortnite. My understanding from research and now from talking to people is Fortnite is less gory, it's less bloody. So it is not as violent as many video games. If you're gonna have kids that play video games that involve fighting, one of the problems with any video game like that has to do with Super Mario. Super Mario Brothers, you get through one level and then you have a break. Madden. I am okay with my kids playing soccer games and Madden because those, you have a goal. Your goal, you're not getting rewards, you're not getting points, you're not getting these dopamine hits. That makes products like Fortnite particularly hard for kids to stop playing. And some kids, I talked to another parent the other day who said, actually, we said yes to Fortnite, and then I noticed as soon as he started playing Fortnite, he was obsessed. Can I play? Can I play? I don't want to go there. I want my time on my screen. Other games like Madden, not an issue. Fortnite, right? So I would say, look, as compared to other games, the other thing is that Fortnite has parental controls that are considered pretty damn good as far as parental controls go. And so it will allow you, I believe, to stop. It's the direct messages you got to stop. It'll allow you to stop that. So all of that is to say, look, as parents, we're doing the best we can, and we cannot compete with billion-dollar companies that have all the money and resources and power in the world. I personally had said no to Fortnite because of the fact that I know that, even tablets, I got rid of tablets after I started this work because I realized those attitude issues. When I gave the kids tablets, even with the Amazon, it was Kindles, and I bought the Amazon Kids thing. Well, my 4-year-old, she's obviously the problem, the troublemaker of the family, she actually was getting YouTube videos on the Kindle after I said no YouTube. And I bought the parental, but even my boys, they would fight a lot. So all of that is to say, it's not good for their brains. It's better than some products. Yeah. Yeah.
And then didn't even get a device until he was like 8 or something. And, I'm a teacher, so I'm doing so great,
And you are. That's the thing, right? You are.
It's amazing. It's like you can't
Mm-hmm.
And he plays like all this stuff.
Yep.
And then it's like, and I only give him like an hour a day during like school days, because
Yep.
that's his time. He can do whatever he wants with it. But yeah, he is addicted.
Right.
And it's,
Right.
it's scary to see. And
Yes.
get rid of the impulse, like the way he is kind of a little bit, I hate to say manipulative, but it's different.
That's kids are. That's by nature. I feel like many kids are.
Because he'll be like, and he's only child, and I'll be like, other kids can make friends, we have to work extra hard, socialize, right?
Yeah.
But he'll be like,
This is how I hang out with my friends, right? Because you can specify the friends that he can connect with, which is part of the parental controls. This is how I get to hang out with my friends. Yeah, and they're all on it. I would suggest, so one thing my wife did is she actually asked some of our kids' parents, she's like, do you let your kid play Fortnite? And she asked them, and not in a judgmental way, just in a, hey, I'm just trying to figure it out. And a lot of parents, some said yes, some said no. It turned out they don't all play it. And then she went on to the Peloton Moms group. And it was interesting. And I would, if any of you were in a mom's group like that, I'd ask the question, because what was interesting was the folks that had really strong feelings, a lot of nurses, a lot of doctors, a lot of psychologists that were like, look, I get it, but no. Right? So there's worse products out there. It's not good. And part of it, if they were, there's two pieces actually that I would worry about. One is that sort of grooming piece, and that's a harsh word, but it's true. It's now they have Fortnite with parental controls. When they get old enough that there's no parental controls, Fortnite's in their vocabulary. It's in their dictionary. It's their go-to. Fortnite without those parental controls can be pretty dangerous. Remember earlier I was talking about how YouTube and Discord work together. Kids who play these video games, that is a place where extremists go to find kids. They tend to be smart kids. Often they're kids on the spectrum or kids that are neurodivergent in one way or another. They really get into these video games. They spend hours and hours and days playing these things as they get older. So there is something to be said. We can't protect our kids from everything, right? And that's like, wow, way down there. But at the same time, I mean, that's what I do every day. I see these kids that it's like, it just started with Fortnite. It started with YouTube. It started because they wanted to watch the people on these apps play these video games. But what we don't realize is all of that subliminal messaging that's going on, the fact that it is also a good, it is considered a recruitment tool for some more extremist ideas, because you get the people playing the video games, all of a sudden they're talking about topics that your kids shouldn't be listening to, they're putting ideas. It just is really potentially dangerous. Now, is that a rabbit hole? It absolutely is. Maybe it's only 0.5% of kids that have that experience. This goes to things like warning labels on products, right? Because if Meta had said when they came out with these products, hey, 13 plus is great, your kids should use it, we'll bring them together, they can talk with their friends. Now there's a 20% chance they will become harmfully addicted to this product, right? There is a chance that, especially if you have a young girl, that they will develop body dysmorphia, probably only 5%. Body dysmorphia and or severe eating disorders. There is a X% chance. You know, it's all of these things that if they had told us as parents, we would have said, hell no. Is it saving my kid's life? It's not even the internet. I mean, that's the biggest thing of all, right? Is they say, well, you can't take this away from kids, but it's not the internet. You do realize social media, you have actually done nothing good for children that the internet didn't already do. Right? And I was going to college in 1995, 1996. I remember 96 when the internet became a really big thing. It was great, and we'd go to chat rooms and bulletin boards and all this stuff. The difference is it didn't follow us when we went home. Right? When we wanted to log off, we logged off. They didn't have my number, my address, my bio. They didn't have my full friends and family list. It was a much better product, and kids were genuinely happy on the internet. That's not what these products are doing. Yeah. 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 Yep.
And starting to show us some behaviors that I was seeing so it's very interesting. But I also want to know what resources would you recommend for me to start engaging with my boys about this, because
There are none.
they know that this is going on. But I have no idea. So now I'm curious, like, how would you?
I don't know that there are any. And one of the things with resources, even with Archwell, one of the things they contemplated doing was creating a support network for siblings, particularly siblings when a sibling dies. The sibling, right? Like people comfort the parent, understandably, but these siblings go through trauma as well. Particularly older siblings feel like I should have protected. Younger siblings feel like there's my protector. And one of the complications is when it comes to providing support for minors, it's very complicated, right? So even with the parent support, it is parent-led, but they also have an incredible team. There is like a whole huge team in the background that is there to provide resources, there to run meetings, there to help. The very unfortunate answer is I don't know that there are resources. Now, one of the things, Amy Neville, I mentioned earlier, Alexander Neville Foundation, this woman is incredible. It is all she does. It is her entire life, and she is so incredible. It would be going to the school and saying, hey, can you get someone like Amy Neville to come up, right? Can you get somebody to come up and talk to these kids? Because she will show pictures. There are a lot of parents out there doing this work to try and help other kids. They will come up for very, very reasonable rates. I mean, with Amy, I was always like, Amy, your husband can't be working to pay for you to go help people. You need to, they need to pay for your flight. I mean, it took years before she even was comfortable with that. Her husband was bankrolling her trips to go help kids, right? But reasonable rates. We'll come out and we'll talk to these kids. We'll give these kids examples. We'll show these kids photos. 100%. So it starts with one, right? Look, the reason when when Eleni's sister was like, hey, what do you think about going to college? I said, yes, absolutely. Every time I go to something and people say, well, what are you hoping to get out of it? And my answer is, I met a group of people in DC a couple weeks ago. I said, look, if just one of you will go and tell people what you heard about today, we'll go talk to kids, people who have kids, people who know kids, this is exactly where I want to be. Because it starts with one. And that's what we've got to get over. These companies are massive. Like, we're never going to beat them straight on the law. We're never going to beat them straight on legislation. One example I give, COSA, the Kids Online Safety Act. This is a great law. It passed 91-3 in the Senate, and then the House made some markups that were absolutely terrible. And Johnson and Scalise out of Louisiana have said, nope, we're not voting for COSA. And they have the ability, like 2 people in the House have the ability to tank the whole thing. We need to get their constituents speaking up. And all of this, we're like, what is happening? We know something's happening, I'm not, so you probably can't play this recording, this part of it, because I've said this twice today, and they already have a problem with me. But a couple days after all this, a piece came out. Well, Meta has committed to a $5.1 billion AI facility in Louisiana next year, right? So lobbyists, they've spent, 80+ million this year? And that number, since we've been trying to get legislation passed, has quadrupled. So we're never going to be able to fight them on their terms. What we can do is we can get the numbers. And I'll tell you what, parents, when people ask, like, this is insane, how do you all think you can even do this? And I always say, like, here's what we have that they don't. We have pissed off parents. That's all we need. Yeah.
So, not only am I a parent of a 7-4-year-old boy, which is very disturbing to me.
Yeah.
I also am a high school teacher, and we know that there's bullying in our schools. We know that these apps are contributing, and we know our kids are getting drugs for these apps.
Yep.
And they're getting reported. These
Yep.
guys will
Yep.
screenshot, do safe to tell, do all these things to tell our SROs, hey, this is what's going on. And us teachers, when we bring this to our administrators, when we bring these to our districts, they say, there's nothing we can do about it, we can't take away their phones. And I'm like, what power do I have as a high school teacher, knowing my kids are suffering from some of this?
Yeah. So one, yep. Number one, keep asking, keep pushing, keep advocating. Because ultimately, like, that's all these kids have. It's you advocating, it's you caring what's going to happen. They need that. And it matters. And they see it and they know it. And so please keep fighting. No matter how tired you get, keep fighting. The other point is, as we see more schools doing this, we're going to see administrators doing it. This 14-year-old that I showed screenshots of earlier, one of these predators was actually sending her Uber Eats at lunchtime. Imagine a world where instead of the parents figuring out what's happening and getting in there and interventions, imagine instead that this girl doesn't come home one day and it turns out that she's on a school device after this parent has said to the school, this is harmful to my child, I don't want her on it, you don't have my permission. They said, sorry, no choice. And that a predator has connected with her through the school device and has then picked her up at school and she's gone. I am so glad that's not how that story ended. I suspect part of the answer of what's going to help us push schools is when they realize you could be sued, right? And it's not, we have to be obviously very careful how we present that. It's not that we want to sue schools. It's that when parents are sending their kids to schools and when parents are begging schools, please do something. Do not let my child on this device. Whatever software you have does not work. You've acknowledged it. I'm doing everything I can. I've bought the Gab phone. I turn off the Wi-Fi. At a certain point, the dam is going to break. And look, ultimately, there are going to be some lawsuits against schools. It's not us. We got a lot going on, and there will be some firms bringing lawsuits against schools where a school was told, you don't have my permission. Unfortunately, it's going to take, right? It's going to take a school realizing, hey, it's not a choice. Now, one of the things, so Nikki Riceberg's scrolling to death. She's incredible, and she went into her school in California, and a kid had gotten like an AI, remind me, I gotta mention AI companion apps, but a kid had gotten an AI companion app on like Geometry Dash, which is something, right, on the school iPad. So she walks in, working in this area, knowing about these, she walks in and says, I would like to look at my child's iPad. Gets onto YouTube on the iPad, and within a minute, there's self-harm content. Her child is the same age as my oldest 9-year-old. And in the video, which she then put on her podcast, she's like, oh, I've seen enough. I can't do this. So she goes into the school and she says, I'd like to opt out. My child does not have permission to use an iPad. And the school writes her a letter that says, well, we hear you, but it's part of our curriculum, state law. It's not really. Now, she fortunately knows a lot of lawyers. And so she's able to get help to go in and say, hey, so the school is thinking through the options. I don't know where it is most recently, but basically in that scenario, ultimately, look, she's probably going to take her kid out of that school and put him in a private school. We have got to start standing up to schools. We've got to advocate. One of the things is if there is a specific instance of harm that happens, actually, when the cameras are off, we'll talk about that. But it's doing everything you can and just not giving up, please. Look at the phone-free school movement. Show them those materials. Say, it's so weird that you're telling me you can't do this, but look at this. Look at these. They're getting more and more testimonials of schools saying, hey, not only we do it, but our kids are thriving. Just don't give up, because at some point here, we will hit a critical mass. We are, in 3 years, things are moving slowly, but they are moving, right? The public opinion on this issue is shifting finally. And it's shifting in large part because these parents are coming forward and telling their stories. I had an 18-year-old incredible young woman who said, 3 years ago when this started, nobody was talking about it. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. It was always our fault. We couldn't. And she said, now teachers are talking about it. Students are talking about it. Now it's not all fixed, but now I don't blame myself. Kids kids are talking about it, and that's what we've got to do. And it's taking all of these pieces, and you can you can get a copy of the PowerPoint. It's taking all of these pieces and just having this conversation with kids and friends and teachers and anyone who will listen. That's what I do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's one of our biggest pet peeves.
Yep.
As teachers, year after year, can we have a policy? Can we have a policy? Can we take away from kids who are
Yeah.
And not only was our end of saying, hey, we'd love to do that. Let's me talk to upper end. It was our secondary education representative from the district that said absolutely no way. Because he was more afraid of being sued by parents for taking away from us rather than.
So have him call me. That's not going to happen. That's never going to happen. And actually, I could get him great representation. I bet I could get pro bono representation if a parent tried that. There are plenty of advocates in this space. Let them try. Because seriously, that isn't, look, the Nintendo Switch can be used as a communication device. That is like saying my child has a right to bring a Nintendo Switch into class. And by the way, look, allergies in school, right? Peanut allergies. My child can't be in a classroom with peanuts. Not a problem. Schools get that. My child has a social media addiction and cannot be in a classroom with device. It's a thing, right? And all of a sudden we can't do it. And unfortunately, what it is going to take for schools to really wake up, if we don't get them to start making change now, is it's going to take those terrible worst-case scenarios where a child is abducted, raped, killed, whatever, and then the school gets sued. Why? Because they knew. Because the school device was that kid's only access to these harms, and the parents had said, please, don't let my child on that device. And it's subtle, by the way, guys. I want to bring up an example of a friend who plays soccer with our kids. Her 12-year-old had a school device. She realized her 12-year-old was watching YouTube instead of doing homework in her bedroom. And it had been a couple weeks, maybe a month. And so one thing was, I said, do you let her keep that in at night? I was like, come on, she's getting on. No, she's not. She's sleeping at night. Well, this was a very honest kid. And I was like, hey, you ever gone on that thing at night? She's like, of course I have. Most kids, when they're not threatened, right, they'll be honest. I was like, yeah, of course I have. Everyone does it. I said, so look, she's been on it for about a month and you didn't realize that. Have you noticed any changes in the last month? And she thought for a moment and said, actually, wow, now that you mention it, she wants new skin creams. Never had an issue with her skin. And all of a sudden, she wants A, B, and C skin creams and makeup products. And my point was, so that's YouTube, right? And today, it's starting with a skin cream. It's because YouTube is targeting her with advertisements and influencers, and they're telling her she's not pretty enough. And she's flawed, and her skin is terrible. And parents that and that is how it starts. And it seems harmless, because there's no way this parent would equate a 12-year-old saying, hey, can I get such and such brand name skin cream? Even though when you think about it in retrospect, it's like, hey, where did you hear about that skin? But we don't think that way, right? It's like, oh, a skin cream. Well, it is eroding your child's sense of self-esteem. And it's, you mentioned 2 kids and where I thought you were going to go with that. We actually have a number of cases with siblings where one is identical twins. Parents get divorced, one twin goes with dad, one twin goes with mom. I am not stereotyping, I promise. Dad was the one that had no social media rules. Twin that goes with dad starts using social media. And within 6 months, that twin is suicidal, flunking out of school, depressed and anxious. Twin that stayed with mom and had no social media access, just fine. Twin moves back with mom, is doing better now. Had another instance with triplets. Young girls. One of them, the one that was the smallest and had heart conditions at birth and all of these issues, she actually got into Fortnite, so not social media. She got into Fortnite and video game playing, and the other 2 got into Instagram. So the twin that got into video games, yeah, she plays more than she should, right? But mom's like, hey, she loves herself, she's fine. And this is a kid that had seizures for the first couple years of her life, right? She's like, no, she's great. The 2 that started on Instagram, they're diagnosed depression, anxiety. You've got one with suicidality, one has a diagnosed eating disorder. The kids that were on Instagram suffer from massive mental health problems. And that's 2 examples out of several. We have a lot of cases where you have siblings where one sibling got into social media, one didn't. Same household. Social media say, well, you can't prove that. That's not scientific certainty. That's probably right. It may be right? But when we have 3,600 families and when it's the same pattern over and over and over, the only difference, these kids have 1 parent, 2 parent, low income, mid income, high income, different race, different religion, different background. The only thing that's the same is the harms. It's across all these kids, yeah.
Just real quick, I am all about early intervention, right? And kind of like Shelley was asking about, so there's nothing that we can show them, because I am all for a developmentally appropriate scare tactic, right?
Yes.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, so one is email me. I was going to do a talk with a high school. I may still do it in 2025. So I put together a high school deck, and I started to put together a middle school deck. I will send you those. And so that is something, let me give some thought to those and make sure that they're clear. And if not, I will get on a Zoom and I will tell you what each slide means. I will get you materials of decks that not the most explicit stuff in here, and this isn't even, man, God, there's worse, right? But I will get stuff that is a scare tactic that is reasonable for a child, that would be age appropriate, that I would show my own kids. So don't let me forget that. I will get that to you, and if you guys need more input on that, I will get you that. One thing I do not want to forget about, AI companion apps, Character AI, Poly AI, Carter Chat, Replica. These are apps that until July of this year were rated 12 plus in the Apple App Store. They're now 17 plus. You will see them advertised at kids' games and on kids' YouTube shorts. Keep your children away from AI companion apps at all costs. They're not games. They are incredibly dangerous. We filed 1 complaint already, a young man who died by suicide. He fell in love with an AI app. Mom takes away the phone, wants to be with her, gets onto mom's, I think, iPad or computer, says, do you want me to come home? Yes, come home. After year of having basically a sexual relationship with a bot. There are 10, 11-year-old kids who are having these relationships with bots. They are wildly dangerous. We are filing a complaint this month in December that is so bad. Our hope is that the DOJ will step in and shut one of these apps down. Parents do not see this coming. It's not social media. In fact, the kids are like, hey, this is a game. You create your favorite characters. It's true. What they don't tell you is they are training their LLMs on what can only be described as like fan fiction. And so when you are a kid and you go in there, these apps are sexually aggressive. They have no limits. Now, Character AI does have filters. Poly AI does not. I've heard from kids directly. I've seen the screenshots myself. It is really, really bad. It is really bad. It actually, believe it or not, makes social media look not so bad, which is saying something. It is really bad. And so hopefully we will, like the metaverse, hopefully at some point someone will step here and say, nope, no more, we're not doing this. But I will tell you, and they're training their LLMs on this data, so they're getting really bad data from your kids, the deepest, darkest secrets. They're pushing them into bad experiences, harmful experiences, and then they're using that data to train their LLM, which just means it's getting better at exploiting and abusing children, yeah. Yeah, the ones that, so actually if you go onto your Apple store or your Google store, just look up AI. and you will see a bunch of those pop up. And Character AI and Poly AI and Replica are the three most common. Some of them aren't even in the App Store. You get them on websites, but I would look it up in your app. The other thing I forgot to say earlier that I wanted to let folks know, even as an adult, look, one of the things I did a year ago, I don't have my phone on me, but if you go to the App Store and you look up Dumb Phone, you get a bunch of apps, and some of them will be free with in-app purchases. You don't want those because that's the whole point of a dumb phone. I turned my phone into, there's an app you can get, it was like $3.99. And one of the things I noticed, and look, as an adult, I can choose to drink, I can choose to smoke, that's my choice. But I did notice I'm spending more time on my phone than I want to spend. And I don't know how to control that. So I got a dumb phone app on the App Store. It was like $3.99. And you install it, and it makes it so your phone is black. And then you pick on screen 1, I've got like phone, text, maps, because I get lost constantly. On screen 2, I've got some other things. Then you can scroll through and see your apps. I have gotten hours of my day back that I didn't realize I was spending. Something as simple as, and I had no idea, well, I always had 2 different photos, one on my home screen, one on my lock screen, of my kids, and they're friggin' adorable. I had the Christmas Santa photo on my lock screen, which meant that every moment I had a moment downtime, what did I do? I reached for my phone. Oh, look at those cute kids. Open it up, here's all these colorful apps. Oh, I think I'll play a game for a few minutes. I had no idea how. I also deleted games, which, look, that was hard. I had games, and I'm like, hey, I'm stressed out, I just want to play some games. But I would get coins in these games, and I would build up, and then they have these clubs you can join where people are like chatting, and I'm like, oh, this is so much fun. It's terrible. So I'm basically spending an hour or 2 a day on games instead of playing with my kids, instead of doing something. When I turned my phone into essentially a dumb phone, but you have the option to make it a smartphone, hours in my day, and I deleted the game. So it is something I recommend for people who are trying to cut their own time down. You will be surprised how much time you look at that cute photo of your kids on your phone. So, all right.